Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of the CVO Live. It's my pleasure and honor to be here with Russel McAthy. Hi man.
Yeah, how's it going?
I'm here with you. So we're here in Greece, in Athens. You've just had an amazing presentation, by the way, on lifetime value and how to increase it. So you're one of the best speakers that we could get in our show today. And let's start by letting our audience know about your path to getting to this place in improving any e-commerce company by focusing on the customer lifetime value.
Yeah, so I started over 20 years ago, which I know I look younger than that, I'm sure. But I started 20 years ago as a finance analyst. And once I discovered the marketing world, and it was working for a business that sold car parking and hotels online very early on in how digital was coming around. And they were facing exactly the same challenges that brands are facing today. Is like they didn't know what performance was actually, what things were working, what things weren't working. And I went into a very, very early version of Google Analytics just after it wasn't Urchin anymore, and started playing with the data there. And one of the first things that I came across with the sort of the data scientists before they became called that was this concept of the issue with multi-channel marketing. Like we had a lot of activity going out, early paid activity in search engines, early activity that was called affiliates back then, which was just more the content affiliates. And we had basic performance, but we didn't know what the advanced stuff was. And my passion in that turned into my passion for attribution and understanding that. And the fundamentals of lifetime value are built on having a correct historic data set that you can trust, and then understanding how change, looking at different cohorts, impacts the future and what you can learn from the past to infer what's going to happen in the future, which can help your mix.
Perfect. Tell us a bit about what you do right now. I mean, in your
so I run a company called Ringside. I've got two awesome business partners who co-founded a business with me. And we do advanced marketing analytics. So I'm in the world where a lot of people don't like GA4. And for us, the opportunity in the marketplace is for the people who are asking that next level up of questions. They're not happy with the current status quo. They're not happy that the Googles and Facebooks are defining what success means for them. They don't trust those platforms. They don't trust those big vendors. And a lot of the brands we work with use Ringside as their single platform of truth. They see us as the place where we pull all of the data from those networks. We pull data from their CRM system. We pull data from their affiliate platforms, their email management system, all of that, put that into a single customer view, and then surface a number of insights, whether that be attribution, whether that be forecasting, whether that be lifetime value. But based on this data set that's completely clean, it's first party, we've got it from them, combine that with our own web analytics, which is server-side, privacy first, GDPR, although it's e-privacy directive, not GDPR, CCPA, all of those privacy and security first approaches. And the reason we need to do that is we need to grab that data to enable us to ask the smarter questions that sit on top of that.
So why do companies, not only marketers, right? Because lifetime value is not needed only by the marketing teams. Why do we need customer lifetime value? What's the outcome of measuring, monitoring, and trying to improve it?
I think the complexity of lifetime value is it's the holy grail for marketing. Marketers, that's the metric where they've never really been able to get to it, but they know if they had that number, and it's not just one number, which I know you know this, but if they had that one number, they would be able to make all of their decisions. And that's not the case. So the first thing that the marketing and finance teams love the concept of lifetime value as well is if you can be in a position where you are making decisions not just based on the instant return on investment, which we all know is a flawed approach. We know that customers will repurchase, or we hope they do at least. So we're in this space where if we devalue the future purchases, that's all we're doing if we're in this world of how was the performance last week, how was performance last month. We're not in the space of going, well, let's take a step back and understand what behaviors are we training our audience to have, whether it be we're pushing so many discounts down their throat that they are only going to convert when there's discounts available.
Yeah.
And so lifetime value is that metric that is this holy grail, because it will, if you are able to monitor it over time and break it down into cohorts, allow you to make smarter decisions because you're looking at the broader customer behavior, not just did someone convert today, yes or no.
Yeah, that's great. So Russell, let's focus a bit on the attribution side of things, because it can be a pain, right? I mean, it is a pain. It's not like it can be. We have the cookie, iOS, GDPR, all that dance. How you are solving the attribution? Can it be solved, or is still indicative at this moment?
Everything everyone is doing right now, irrespective of what technology they're using, is doing attribution. So they are doing last touch attribution if they're using UA, or they might be doing data-driven attribution, which is a methodology that Google is training people that that's the way to do it. So everyone is doing some form of attribution in the sense of they are saying, this is the place we're going to give credit. Yep. Whether it's baked in or not is a completely different question. The approach that I think is the most likeliest to show the true behavior of customers is a machine learned model that is trained on all touch points in a digital first business. So let's start the conversation with, we're talking about a digital first business where 60 to 70 plus of their revenue is coming from a digital storefront of some type. For those businesses, a machine learned model that is trained on the performance you have, where you are taking into consideration not just the channels and the account of touch points and all of the stuff that people talk about, but also the events, the micro events that happen within the visit, where the customer is telling us what they're interested in and the way they're engaging, the time difference and lag between those interactions. All of those things need to be put into that model to make it accurate. And a lot of those aren't included in data-driven attribution, the 15 different models that Google has across all its products. So those things need to be taken into consideration, and that is where digital attribution is possible, and you are able to get to a very clear picture of these are the things that show a likelihood increase in a person's propensity to convert, and these actions are more likely to get someone to not convert yet. And everyone is a potential converting customer. And then you play onto that the stuff, and we'll touch back on lifetime value here, but on the actions that drive a higher revenue over multiple conversions, you can play all of those things together as well. The flip side of this is for the less digital native businesses. So the ones, I had a conversation with a brand last night where they spend about 70% in TV. And a multi-touch attribution model out of the box is not going to work for them at all. Any attribution model isn't the right route for them. They need to be looking at MMM modeling, econometrics, where they can understand, firstly, that TV isn't doing everything that TV is saying it's doing, because quite often it's, if we were running TV in that week, all sales are TV. That's not how that works, or all brand sales are TV. So it's then saying, okay, if we run an econometrics model, a media mix model, to better understand the role that TV has at making someone more likely to convert. Once you've got that as the foundational knowledge to say, this is the impact digital is having, this is the impact that email's having, your TV, your out of home, then you can take the slice that is the digital slice and overlay an MTA model on top of that, so you can understand the role of individual campaigns and activity on that. That was a very long answer to a short question.
Yeah, to set the stage, please disclose what's an MMM model, what's an MTA. What's MTA is?
MTA is multi-touch attribution. So that is where the model you're building is looking at all of the web data typically that is giving you each touch point in the consumer journey. Now, the example that people give are like a 4-visit journey. So there are 4 visits, and in the final visit, someone purchases, and therefore you're trying to redistribute the weighting between those visits. And you can do that in a very basic way. So you pick them, you do last touch, which is the last one, first touch, first one, or you can have a machine learning model that redistributes that value in a smarter way. And I could do another 40 minutes just on that. Yeah. And then in a medium mix modeling, the easiest way to explain this is it's more similar to correlation analysis. So you typically need about 3 years of historic data of your revenue generated visits or engagements by channel or grouped channel. So quite often digital is one line, and then you'll have phone, TV, print. You can break it down a little bit, but it will be weekly or monthly. And what you're trying to do is correlate the cost of that activity to the return of that activity. It is not just pure correlation analysis. I am simplifying it, but there are mathematical equations that you can apply to that level of data set that gives you the influence that each one of those line items has. And the econometrics world does allow for a little bit further breakdown, but that's the rough principle that we're talking about.
Great. I wanted to address this so that we know that everyone which is listening to us are on the same page. To, let's say, have an overview of what we've touched so far, Russell. What you're saying is, hey, CLV matters because it's the measure of how you can invest and you will make better decisions. If you want to invest, it's crazy not to know how much you're getting from a customer down the line so that you know how, if you're over-investing and under-investing. And in order to do so, you should be using a machine learning model that's giving this type of weights and models your data so that you are way more, let's say, accurate in your decisions down the line, because just simply doing this manually or giving weights like how you interpret it with your own brain is not going to work. Once you do this, what do you do? I mean, which are the actions after analyzing this data? Because we both know that companies are collecting a ton of data, they are doing those reports. Business is asking for the data teams, hey, give us this report, and then business is not doing anything about it, and it's this constant conflict between those two teams. What actions are made afterwards?
Let me just address something very quickly from what you've said. For large companies, everything you said is true.
Yeah.
There is the smaller businesses where this is way too advanced.
Yeah.
It's going to cost too much time, effort, money, technology. We're too expensive. You're probably too expensive
Exactly.
for those businesses. So the first thing that they can do is just look at the difference between a first click and a last click model and see if there's a difference in the channel makeup and the campaign breakdown for those types of businesses. That is your starter for 10, if that phrase works. Yeah. And that's your starting block for that type of analysis. So for a smaller business, that's where they can go to at least start to understand the differences.
Yeah. To stop just a bit here, Russell, that means, or what you're saying to them, to translate them a bit or to unpack it a bit, that means if you have different channels and if the share of the first touch is way different than the share of the last touch, you'll be in a position to let's say, invest differently, because at the end of the day, the action that you could be making is allocate different weights and invest differently in different channels based on the differences between the first and the last touch, right?
Exactly. And then that carries on into how you would do this if you had an advanced multi-touch attribution model. So one of the things that a lot of the brands we work with, they change their methodology. It's a lot of this is the psychological element, and the output is you think based on what you've been doing for the last 5-10 years, you think that paid brand activity works incredibly well at driving revenue.
Yeah.
And it does. It works very well. It just doesn't work as well as you think it does. And your generic activity or your shopping activity works better than you think it does. And where you're apportioning your return on investment, which is typically like a ROAS or even a return on investment if you've got cost of goods sold coming out of an e-commerce.
Yeah.
If you're in a position where you can go, okay, I'm in my head, this is how I think customers come to us. This is the efficiency of all of the different campaigns and activities we're doing. And then you're given another number, and you're being told this number is smarter, which is what I would say.
Yeah.
This number is smarter. You then need to go, okay, well, do I need to think about these things differently? Am I going to approach generic search as I know the generic search features further back in a journey. It's the visit before the conversion. And therefore, in my head, the return on investment of generic search, I'm happy to be 200%, but my brand PPC return on investment needs to be 800%, because then I can balance the budget.
Yeah.
But in an attributed world, the brand ROAS will drop because less credit is being given to the brand activity, and your generic ROAS will improve. They won't ever get to the same level because they are different activities with different roles. But the generic activity will get more credit because it appears often in successful consumer journeys. And therefore, what you then have is a different ROI that you use to look at all of your different generic campaigns. And it's the same with any of the paid social activity. Anything that tends to not be right at the end of the journey, you're undervaluing at the moment. We see organic search is undervalued by somewhere between 15 and 25%. So you'll see extra revenue go into organic search. The important bit is that extra revenue has come from somewhere else. It will come from your direct, it will come from your paid brand activity, it will come from your brand retargeting activity. All of those things, their revenues will decrease, the attributed revenues will decrease, and the revenues of the activity that contributes to future conversions will go up.
Yeah, that's leading me to another question, Russell, which is how we are seeing this hype of the post-purchase surveys. How do you think those fit into the picture? Because with the post-purchase surveys, you can't simply ask people like, have you heard of us on TikTok or on Twitter or on Pinterest? Or you can do that, but how accurate those are? And some of the proponents of the post-purchase surveys that lead you towards, hey, make better decisions towards your budget by using the post-purchase surveys and finding which are the channels that are contributing more. So those proponents, what they say is that from an acquisition perspective or from a memory perspective, people are remembering this channel, even though that channel appeared the third or the fourth in their purchase journey.
I don't trust them at all. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think they work at all because I don't trust the consumer to tell us the thing that convinced them. The only scenario where that works is where it's word of mouth. So you have no data on that person. They just came direct to the website and you find out that it's word of mouth advertising. If that's the scenario, you should have a referral system put in place because that person probably should have got a discount from their friend, and their friend should have got a discount and incentivize the original person who gave the word of mouth to come and purchase again and be a repeat customer. And that is the only use of, in my opinion, a post-purchase flow where you get accurate data to tell you what was going on in the past.
Yeah.
That the benefit of any post-purchase questions and answers is there's two outcomes. One, it should decrease your return rate, because that's one of the benefits of having an engaged customer, is that you should be able to address any issues in that post-purchase process to decrease return rate. And the second is it should increase next purchase value and next purchase rate.
Yeah.
Because again, if you engage with the customer with the right messaging, in the sense of you're not addressing just did you get the products that we sent you, but you're actually satisfying their needs as a customer, those two outcomes are the metrics that you want to be monitoring. And that's why I wouldn't really trust the free text field. Yeah, from an attribution perspective, I'm 100% accurate with what I know, and I don't want to add any variability in opinion, because a customer will go, oh, I've never seen a Facebook ad, but they subconsciously consumed it.
They've been primed to buy thanks to an ad that they are not even recalling consciously, and that's great. But I want to challenge you a bit on this, Russel, regarding the word of mouth and the direct channels.
Yep.
Are those similar? Have you made any kind of research to see that basically when you look in any web analytics solution, they might have this traffic source which is called direct, let's say, or whatever they call it, right? So basically there are people which are going there and they are typing your website URL. And on the other hand, with the post-purchase surveys, you have this, I've heard from a friend or whatever. If you exclude that, how accurate would be the report, or how do you balance those?
So the first thing is direct as a channel has way too much value in the majority of conversion events. And that's one of the things that an MTA attribution model will take 30% of the direct traffic away from direct, because it was right.
30%, or is basically going to balance it automatically?
It will automatically balance it to the right number.
Oh yeah. So just to be clear, that is not like set in stone 30%.
No. It's going to take a lot of the credit away, because direct often features right at the end of the journey. Someone leaves a tab open, someone just types in the main domain name for their brand. The other important bit is there is a huge difference between direct traffic that is returning direct traffic and direct traffic that literally came to the website by typing in a domain and buying in that visit. They're two different types of people. The returning one, say that person came in on a brand term on PPC and then 2 weeks later typed in the domain name and converted. That's going to get direct conversion, or in Google Analytics it will still be PPC, but we won't moan too much about GA on this today. But like, that would be a direct conversion, but that person is a returning customer, and we know that some of that value, if not a lot of that value, will be reattributed to paid search. So direct isn't always the same thing, and I think that the value from a qualitative perspective is actually getting a marketer to understand, well, if 80% of the survey results say a friend recommended me, that's a shift in the way you think about how the business as a whole. And I think you need to use the qualitative data rather than trying to quantify things from a free text field or even a selection and use that to adjust the data that you have. If anything, it should change your approach by using it from a qualitative perspective, if that makes sense.
Yeah, super. I'm with you 98%. Don't get me wrong. I just wanted to unpack these things a bit, because there is a lot of buzz. There are companies which are built totally on the idea that everything is screwed. We can't use the technology to track and to nail the attribution anymore, and we need to go 100% on the post-purchase surveys. Even though I'm a big fan of the post-purchase surveys, I don't think those are reliable completely. So you can't rely on this from this perspective, but you can extract a lot of insights from talking to your customers and getting this type of information from them, even from this perspective of how well your loyalty and referral are doing. Because even if the data is skewed, let's say, seeing that you've increased the incentives for referrals, for instance, and you've monitored constantly how many of your customers came on your website and bought thanks to your being referred by a friend, and you get this from 16% to 35%, and you have significantly statistically data, then you can rely on the fact that, hey, our incentives are better. But you can't compare how important is the, let's say, Facebook ad campaign thanks to this post-purchase survey. So we're on the same page on this. These are for different purposes, and they should be, let's say, used for those different purposes.
One is a clear shift in strategy that you're able to monitor the performance of, and the other is just day-to-day, tactically, how are we deploying our monetary amounts into each channel, and what's the impact of that. And those are two different things, but they interchange. Like if you completely change your strategy with influencers and referrals and friends referrals, your marketing mix will change.
Yeah.
And so you'll need to monitor that, but you don't want to monitor that with just survey results. So it needs to work hand in hand.
Yeah, perfect. So Russell, let me pause a bit here to, let's say, put things into perspective to our audience, because I've been brainwashed everyone around customer value optimization, and what you're doing is completely part of this customer value optimization methodology. So in our approach, and what I've been telling you all about for the last years now, is that you're starting with nailing the unit economics. You know your lifetime value, you know your customer acquisition cost, and for that you need software. So Russel software is a great software for that. We don't do anything about the acquisition and attribution part. Then once you know that, you go out there and you do customer research. So you understand what's causing customers to buy, you understand what are they actually buying, you segment them based on the RFM if you're in e-commerce or whatever other model, but you understand who are your best customers. Now, here's the thing that, and where Russell's approach is great, is that once you have your RFM segments, you know your best customers that come back to buy again, you know your ex-best customers that are not coming back. Doing this type of analysis, like what is the channel that brought our best customers, what is the channel that brought our worst customers, and even deeper than that, if you have data around the campaigns, then that's jackpot, because the lifetime value is just an average, and that means you can't rely on an average value. You need to slice it. You need to slice it by the channel, what you're proposing. You need to slice it by the segment, by the location, by the first bought product or SKU, and once you have that, then you're in a position to make better decisions. Before that, you're just shooting in the dark, and I think the best outcome of your approach, Russell, is that you're empowering teams not to shoot in the dark, because not knowing how much you're getting from a channel down the line, it's just guessing, right? You're either over-investing and under-investing, which is not a strategy nowadays when the customer acquisition cost is too high. So basically, that's to set things into perspective, that's how you blend what you're doing with what we're doing and what we are proposing with this customer value optimization model. Last question for you. What is your number one piece of information, book, course, whatever, for any e-commerce leader willing to level up their game in 2023 and beyond?
So I have a CXL course out that talks about attribution.
Yep.
I don't make any more money out of it. They paid me for it once, so You can go and do it as part of a growth course. It's really good if you're new into marketing.
Yeah.
It touches on a lot of the stuff we've discussed here and doesn't go too advanced. I don't write anything I do up. I've not got a blog. I'm not doing a book or anything like that. One thing I would advise any marketer to do right now is to better understand the economics of how businesses make money. I started off my presentation in Athens just talking about the basics of the maths of how people make money. And a big part of that is understanding how, not only how products are sold on the internet, but also how a P&L works. There are so many marketers who come into marketing either from a creative angle or a data angle, but don't actually get past the point where the money comes in for that product and we spend this much in cost, and they don't know what happens on how that cost comes into the business and how budgets are decided and how you forecast and understand the budget process. And on the other side of it, how you actually make money. What is cost of goods sold? How do we calculate tax in different regions? And there are a number of books out there on understanding P&Ls. There aren't many, and I'm never going to write it because I'm not a writer. So if you want to write another book, that'd be great.
It's already written, man. It's going to be released in June.
Awesome. But understanding the economics of that, I think, is the biggest opportunity for marketers now, because it upskills you within the activity you're currently doing, but also gives you a really good foundation for other things going out there.
Perfect. So where can people find out more about you? Where are you present? Where can get a hold of you?
So on Twitter, I am the Rusty Bear. And then on LinkedIn, I'm just under Russel McAthy. And then Ringside is ringside.ai.
Perfect. So thanks a lot for being with us, Russell. You've been amazing. So I wanna challenge you publicly on something. Would you be interested to build a small course in our CVO Academy around this?
Yeah, of course. We can have that conversation. Yeah.
You've heard the man. So that's it. Thanks a lot for being here with us at the CVO Live. See you next time.